Hey guys, I'm here with former Springbok James Dalton and head of independent media sport, Mark Keohane. Guys, let's just maybe first go straight into the big game this weekend. Obviously, long Super Rugby season, but we get to the final. No surprises that the Crusaders are there, but maybe a bit of surprises that the Jaguars are there. James, any surprise that you expect in the final, or was it Crusaders all the way?
Yeah, well, look, I don't want to take the sparkle and the dazzle out of the final. I mean, it is a big final, but I can't see the Jaguars coming close to the Crusaders. Even if you look at how they dominated the log by even leading by 12 points over the Jaguares, it shows that they're just way more dominant in all aspects of play.
Yeah, for sure. Mark, in your perspective, what's the points difference you would expect from another Christchurch final?
It's been an interesting season because I just don't rate this Jaguari side in terms of being a championship final side. And they have surprised me in how they've won 10 of the 12 games, how well they've travelled to Australia and New Zealand. But the Crusaders are a different team to the rest of the New Zealand sides. And I think they played their final last week, and the one they may have felt was the danger was the Hurricanes, and they were hanging on in those last 2 minutes. And everyone's saying, the Pumas, the Jaguares, you can make a case for them being very competitive. But to get on a plane from Buenos Aires and to fly to Christchurch, you may as well go to Mars. And our teams have felt that coming from Pretoria or Durban and going there, 20 points plus. The bookies have it 13.5, the spread. I think it'll be
13.5.
I think it'll be a comfortable 20 plus. 10th title that they're going for, third one in a row that they're going for under Scott Robertson, and history-making Crusaders. Yeah, I mean, they looked a bit tired and fatigued last week, but I would be very surprised if it's within 20 points.
It was quite interesting at times in that game against the Hurricanes. The Crusaders also made the Hurricanes look very inept and also a side that you would have thought had an inability to get as far as they did. But then, in the second half, they were, the individual brilliance of Barrett was able to turn the game around. But I think it's Crusaders all the way.
Yeah, if you look, every time a New Zealand side has gone to Buenos Aires, it's been tight games, except for the Crusaders, and it's been a bit like the All Blacks. And to me, the key there is, and you'll be better versed in it than most, is the Crusaders have the best pack in New Zealand rugby. And they do dominate that Jaguares pack because their scrumming has been one of their Achilles heels, surprisingly. And if the Jaguares are going to try and play this open and expansive game against the Crusaders, I think they could come unstuck. And what we saw last weekend was such an amazing final, and it was Team 1 playing Team 2. And I think the All Black coaches must have been the happiest. They saw Mahanga outstanding in the first 40, and then they saw Barrett outstanding in the second 40. And just the big name players in New Zealand rugby just seem to step it up. The Dane Coles, I mean, he had an outstanding game.
I don't know about his lineouts. His lineouts are a bit...
bloody good for a flanker. We can maybe also shift him there.
All hookers go to flank.
But I thought again, the one thing that I found weird in a way was the lack of interest, even down in Christchurch. Yeah. When you looked at the crowd attendance, that was the Hurricanes up against the Crusaders, and maybe they spoiled with success. Maybe it was -2 degrees or whatever, but for a game of that quality, transfer that to the UK or Europe, there would have been 50,000 in a 50,000 seat or in a 30,000. There were so many empty seats there, and if you're not packing them in for the Hurricanes, are you going to pack them in for the Jaguares?
Highly unlikely, but on that note, the crowd attendances across all the continents for the Super competition have been very, very bad. It is time, and we've all said this for a long time, that we need to revisit and relook this format of the game. It's become a bit
I think for a long time it has been stale. And looking at the figures as well, I mean, only twice in Super Rugby history has a team from outside of the home country gone to a final and won it. So it kind of just proves the point of you play week after week after week, you get to a final and you almost know for certain who's going to win. I mean, we're predicting a winner about 20 points or more, which is not really what you should be getting to.
I also don't agree on the way the conferences work. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it should have been a Hurricanes Crusaders final. Now you've got, and I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be there because they've performed well and consistently well in the season, but I think it's going to be a disappointing final.
Let's maybe use that as a segue to talk about the squads we're starting to see. Obviously, the All Blacks came out recently. They've named 4 newcomers. Probably the 3 guys being the new backs that they've got in there: Sevu Reece, Braden Ennor, and then Josh Ione, the young fly half from the Highlanders. Mark, maybe from your side, first of all, touching on those guys, good or bad selections. They've left out a few that maybe are bigger or more well-known names. But that trio of newcomers in the backs, what do you think?
Yeah, I was surprised with the Ione selection. Okay, I thought there was going to be Ione, it was going to be Akira Ione in the forwards, and he's gone back to the Maoris. So maybe they're still pushing him to get him to a certain fitness, the Blues loose forward for the World Cup. But I was surprised they went with 3 flyers, because I don't think he is of international class just yet. But they've potentially seen something in him, and the one thing they've done very well in the past is if the 3 of us, or the 2 of you are the top 2, and they identify a youngster, they bring them in as an apprentice to learn in that period, and they'll probably give him a game as well, or give him 40 minutes and see what they've got. But I thought with the 2 there, and you've got a Geordie Barrett who can also cover at fly if he's played there before, that was probably the one selection that surprised me. I thought there was a chance of Ma Nonu getting in, but I still think he may make it there before the World Cup.
No, because his pace too slow, and
until he cuts one down the tackle.
He's just the number on the back at the moment.
Well, look, if Sonny Bill Williams' body doesn't last, and there's a good chance it won't, because he's just been riddled with injury this season, I think it's going to be a like-for-like replacement there. Okay. But yeah, the backs were fairly predictable. I still think they've got a problem when it comes to a big blindside flanker. They haven't replaced Jerome Kanu. They looked at Liam Squire. He's had serious problems with injury and also personal problems off the field. He made himself unavailable. He wants to get his mind right. I do think as a collective, their loose forwards, that's an Achilles heel. And just looking at Sam Whitelock and Kieran Reid a bit, for the first time in that semi-final in the last 10-15 minutes, they just looked a little bit old. And again,
pace, lacking a bit of pace as well.
But I also remind myself of 2015, when a lot of those All Blacks looked off the pace, and one of them was Sonny Bill Williams for most of the season, and he went to the World Cup and was just outstanding. So are they peaking for that one, as opposed to, their thing is you can't peak 3 times in a season. So they're experienced enough to know when they need their big name players.
Look, one thing they have got down pat is how they manage their players. They certainly have that very, very accurate. And then also blooding, bringing having like top 2 international stars in virtually let's take this position that's been fly off now, and then blooding a youngster that will eventually end up being a competent replacement, for the likes of Barrett or Moanga. Yeah. And then obviously, they're talking already big performances, 3rd World Cup in a row. So according to them, they've already won it.
Yeah, and the other thing that they do is they think form is temporary and class is permanent. They do pick a form player, regardless of, and they'll pick a form player ahead of a well-established player if they feel that player needs to go back and actually find a bit of form and go play club rugby. And Sevu Reece comes to mind. Now, I wouldn't rate him in the top 2-3 winners in New Zealand, given who plays for them. When you've got a Ben Smith who can play on the wing, you've got a Geordie Barrett who can play there, and you always got Ione and Naola. Where does he slot in? But they did that in 2015 with Milner Scudder, who had that magnificent season for the Hurricanes. They chose him for the All Blacks, and he provided something very different in terms of a win option, especially playing in that channel just off 10 with his step. And Sevu Reece, defensively, I think is vulnerable. He's not the biggest guy, but his finishing has been outstanding this season.
He scored 15 tries in 2019. So I think, like you point out, backing form players, looking at Super Rugby, and I think maybe we can just move then into our final point, touching on the box squad, because we've had a little bit of a look at that. Do you guys think the box squad has been picked based as much on form, or is there a bit of looking maybe at reputation? James, what are your thoughts, and especially?
Well, certainly, if you're looking at the inclusion of so many overseas players, then you certainly are looking at players that are on form. Because obviously there's a need for and a necessity to look beyond our local borders. But I think our box squad is a well-balanced squad of guys that have earned their reputation, earned their wings, or their box legs. So yeah, I guess only time will tell in terms of getting through the rugby championships, in terms of injuries, and then obviously performances, and then you'll get a better understanding of what we'll be able to take to the World Cup and what our performance levels are. You know, historically, you look at South Africa, we perform well at tournaments. We're a good, consistent tournament team.
Yeah, and I think looking at the tournament again, and when the draw was made a few years back, I think we all said here, and I think there was articles in SARugbymag magazine, that it was the best possible draw for the Springboks, because win or lose, they go into a separate pool, and the next time they can meet the All Blacks would potentially be in a final. So
it's again like the 95 thing of the high and the low road.
Yeah, I guess instead of going into opening game and have a banana peel like they did against Japan, now they've got the best team, get that out the way, and then go from there.
Yeah.
Well, win or lose there, you know, it's either Ireland or Scotland that will come up against. So yeah, you know, as I say, it's the high or the low road for us.
Yeah, and ordinarily we would say, like, oh, do we meet the All Blacks in a quarter or a semi, as that becomes the big game? To actually know you've got them out the way after week one, and you can focus on a tournament, and there's a good chance that someone else may knock them over, an England or an Ireland, and you don't actually play them again. It's 2007. In a way that the draw just fell for us, and back then it was England that we were worried about, and then you know, we knocked them over in the pool stages and met them in the final. And
well, let's hope that all these permutations we make use of these to get into the final, and then again it's the best team on the day that wins a final. So yeah,
and I just think
obviously also touching on that, this will certainly, and we've all said this, and a lot of people have said this, will certainly be one of the best contested World Cups ever, where you've got 6 top nations that have consistently beaten each other over the last 2 or 3 years, and then you can have maybe even an Argentina or a France that come and ruffle a few feathers along the way.
And I think where we mustn't make the mistake, and especially Joe Public, is look at this Rugby Championship and put too much emphasis on that. It's a watered down one. There's only 3 matches. No team has ever won the World Cup that's won the All Tri-Nations or the Rugby Championship in that year. And there are rugby players are superstitious by nature, so are coaches. And I think you could find there's a lot of teams out there not wanting to win this Rugby Championship and not give away too much. And the draw is also very skewed of when you play your 2 home games and who travels for the 2 away games kind of thing. So it can't be doom and gloom if we drop a game in this Rugby Championship. There is a bigger picture at play, because no one remembers who wins that Rugby Championship in the year that you lose the World Cup. So I think we're going to use those 3 matches to experiment with the squad of 30 or 40 players that we've got, and the real McCoy is in Japan. It's not in the Buenos Aires or wherever we go to Australia. Good one for Australia to win, though.
Let me just.
No one's even talking about Australia.
That's probably a problem. Just a quick one, maybe even just a name. With Khalees being injured for the first 2 Rugby Championship games, who would you guys go as your stand-in captain? Probably the options of Vermeulen, Etzebeth, Pollard. Where would you go, Mark? Where would you go, James?
Well, I think you guys went there last. You guys went there.
Look, you'd certainly have to have a Springbok captain or an international captain in the forward. So I'd definitely go with Dwayne. He's got the experience, he's on form, good rugby mind. I don't know about all the time, but certainly he'd be my number 1 choice. And then Pollard as a vice captain, certainly. But I wouldn't have a back as leading a Springbok team.
Yeah, I think you can't go wrong with those 2. But I know Russie's a huge fan of Pollard as a leader, and I think they just had to get his mind right in the last year, that he had the mongrel to play. For a kid, everything came so easy for him. Then he had those bad injuries. It's more a case of, does he actually want to be there, or does he feel he's just good enough to be there? So you may find that there's a match that Dwayne doesn't play and Pollard captains aside, but I think you're looking more and more at Dwayne. And what I do like about Dwayne is he just kind of commands a presence, at the toying cost. When he walks out, he's an imposing figure, and that does mean something when it comes to battle, and he's got huge respect from the opposition. And that's what I felt when he was playing overseas and not playing for the Boks. Whoever was playing at loose forward didn't quite have that presence when it came to, we're playing the Springboks today and that guy's at number 8.
Yeah, look, I think his play is also very balanced. I mean, I think he's in the top 5 for turnovers in the super competition. His ball carrying, we know, is very, very good. Getting over the advantage line is good. And Mark, I agree with you. His physical presence is certainly a massive, massive factor. So yeah, all boxes ticked for Dwayne.
Great. Well, guys, let's not go too long. Let's wrap it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.